Hello, welcome to Quackalope, and today we are bringing you a Red Raven showcase. I am joined with my good friend William. William, you are a massive fan of Ryan Lockett.
I am a massive fan of Ryan Lockett. His games are just so very evocative. I came into his games with Above and Below, which is absolutely beautiful, absolutely a wonderful game, and it definitely makes you have a sense that you're doing something more than just playing a board game.
Sure.
Which is always cool when you can get kind of into your head and use your imagination to just go into a different world. And each one of Ryan Lockett's games definitely allow that to happen, I feel like.
Well, and so we kind of pulled together from our friend group, specifically Jan, you, and I each own some of his games. You own the most. You're a big fan. I just got Rome in, which is sort of the salient reason why we're here talking about some of his collection, so that I can send this home with you afterwards. It's true. It's not a lie. Because I think this will be a good addition to your collection. And then Jan got us Empires of the Void, which is a little bit harder to get a hold of.
It is.
We have the Kickstarter copy here, so one worth talking about. But we were able to pull together, I think, 60 or 70% of his current titles.
Right about that number, yeah.
So before we jump into the games themselves, we were just having a conversation about why you like his games, why you're drawn into kind of this world. Talk a little bit about that before we get into kind of the title overviews.
Sure. Well, like I mentioned before, Ryan Lockett has an ability in his story-based games to just tell a wonderful story. It's so rare to have story-based games that have wonderful art, like I said, drawing you into the world, wonderful stories that are wonderfully written, wonderfully interconnected, so that you can do one thing, and that one thing that you do may affect you later in the game. That is absolutely fantastic. There are other games that are story-driven, something like Tales of the Arabian Nights, but those stories can be a little bit disjointed. They might not feel the greatest, but all the stories that are told within Ryan's games are just really, really woven and interconnected.
Well, and that's one thing that sort of drew me in initially as well. So his story-driven, Above and Below, Near and Far, sort of some of his critically acclaimed games, are ones that initially brought me into this space. But Rome itself is full of lore and flavor text. Even though it's a pattern-building, tile-laying game, the Ancient World is a worker placement game that is full of its own rich narrative, the kind of a lore that you can explore. Right. Even Empires of the Void, probably the most distant from a storytelling game.
Yes.
Because it's a kind of lightweight sort of entry 4X game.
Right.
Still has event cards and alien races and just a narrative that you're able to spin while you play it.
That is right.
On top of that, the beautiful artwork that Ryan does. I mean, everything across the board.
Oh yeah,
It's sort of a genius combination.
When we get into the descriptions of the games and you're able to see some of the artwork here, if you have not seen Ryan's artwork, it is so very evocative that you might want to go get a poster to put up on your wall, because it's just that good.
So, let's go ahead and start swinging into the games. Let's start here with the newest title that I recently got, and that's going to be Rome. Rome is, like I said, a set collection, tile placement, sort of pattern-building game. The lore of the game is that something has happened in the region that's made people just start wandering around. You have different races and creatures from across all of his game kind of states who are just sort of doing strange things. A turtle flipped upside down, a person fishing for boots by the lake, people just wandering around. And so you're journeying out with your party of people, each one that has a specific pattern that you can lay down onto this center exploration board. You're filling out those boards and trying to complete sets of cards in order to take those people home, discover who was in that region, and grow your party. As you grow your party, you're getting new patterns that you can lay and build, increasing sort of the opportunity to explore and expand here in the center. That's the general concept of the game.
Right.
One of the elements that stands out the most for me in the game is that you're always playing based on your perspective. So if you're playing a 4-player game, each person sits on one side, and the patterns that you're laying are based on your version of the board. And so it has an interesting way that it meshes, and people can kind of like fine-tune things to fit into the spaces that they need them to. If you like tile placement or pattern laying games, Rome is not only beautiful, but has some really interesting, compelling gameplay.
Right. I was definitely interested in Rome when it came out in the Kickstarter, but I just couldn't back it at the time, but definitely a very interesting game. And another interesting thing about Rome, in addition to other games that you're going to see in this tableau, Rome incorporates itself into the world of Above and Below, Near and Far, and Islebound. So they all kind of fit into the same world. I believe it's called the world of Azerim.
Yeah, and there's a lot of characters and little item cards and stuff with a ton of flavor text.
Yes.
Another fairly newer game onto the scene is going to be the Ancient World.
Yes, the Ancient World. This is the second edition that we have here. The first edition was released a little while back, but this features new art by Ryan Lockett. It has the same core gameplay, which is worker placement based. In this game, you are various civilizations who are trying to defend their capital cities against the massive titans that are threatening the world. So through the game, you're going to use your worker placement actions to develop new cities, develop new technologies, recruit new people, bring them into your civilization. But you're also going to be needing to defend against the various titans who are attacking your various capital cities. This game comes really down to the artwork that brings you into the world. The peoples are very, very evocative, and the titans certainly are evocative. They kind of stand up above the main player board, and they will be threatening you, even though there's no like miniatures or anything, but the artwork, they look threatening, they're over there, and if you don't do something about them, they will crush your tiny little people who are just trying to survive.
Yeah, when we sat down and played this, I thought it had an interesting sort of accessibility to it.
Yes.
I liked the worker placement mechanics. Nothing was overly complicated, so I was able to kind of enter the game quickly. But it also has a depth of strategy when it comes to how you're building out your tribe when you're going to go face those ancients.
Oh, yes, because they're not easy to beat.
Yeah.
They are titans, so they take a lot of pre-planning and a lot of thought, because you're going to be able to raise armies to fight for you, and eventually those armies are going to have to retire, so they're going to teach the new generation as they come along, but they'll be able to stack those abilities as you go along.
So if you like kind of Ryan's games already, if you like the Red Raven game Showcase, and you also like worker placement games, this is one that you might want to take a closer look at.
Definitely.
Because it'll kind of fill both those gaps. After that, let's swing over here and talk about Haven. Haven is going to be a title that I actually got when I received Rome as well. Haven is designed by Alf Siegert and illustrated by Ryan. This is a two-player game where you're facing off against sort of a human civilization and the forest creatures. So you have a tribe of humans that are slowly developing technology, looking into ancient lore and history, collecting runes and different abilities from the earth. And then you also have forest creatures and the ancient sort of guardians of the forest who are slumbering but not very interested in being taken over and conquered by the human civilization. So you're facing off. It has elements of territory control, resource management, and hand management. You're doing your best to conquer these different regions, discover new technology and new abilities, playing as one of the two sides. You're either playing as the forest creatures guarding against the inclusion of mankind into the space, or you're playing as the city itself, slowly taking over and conquering the forest. If that lore and kind of gameplay sounds interesting, if you're looking for an interesting little two-player game, this is one you might want to take a look at.
Yeah, especially a two-player game that is a little bit deeper.
So I'm going to set this down to the side like we always do, and swing over to Empires.
8-Minute Empire Legends. So this is a sequel of sorts to 8-Minute Empire. The Legends kind of brings in a couple of different aspects that were not included in 8-Minute Empire, kind of like leaders and other various variants that you can play. So 8-Minute Empire is primarily an area control game, and also has elements of a blind bid and purchase system as well. You're going to have a row of cards that you're going to be blind bidding against your other opponents to have first crack at, and you're going to spend your coins in order to buy those cards. Mm-hmm. Once you buy those cards, they will allow you to do different things in the area control aspect of the game. You're going to be able to create armies, you're going to be able to destroy armies, you're going to be able to build citadels. All of these things allow you to expand your little empire and gain control of the many islands of 8-Minute Empire.
Yeah, for sure. This is one I haven't had a chance to play yet. From the card play and from what you were laying out, I like the way the islands kind of interconnect. I like the visual element of the game. And each card has an action that's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, very straightforward.
So you're able to take a card and just move your armies into a space or engage in war, create new people.
Yeah. You can create your own lore. There's also lore in the box. Something that we actually just got from Jesse's backing of Rome was the Red Raven Fan Pack number 1, mm-hmm. which includes an expansion for Legends, which allows you to shoot for different goals as well. Mm-hmm. There are goal cards that you can go for. So if you're not kind of into the straight area control, area majority gameplay, you can also have these goal cards, which allow a little bit more flavor to your game.
Sure. Underneath this adorable little game is going to be the massive attempt at a 4X title. So this is Empires of the Void. This is printing number 2, which has the iconic 2 behind it.
Yes.
This is Ryan's swing at a accessible,
very
2-hour 4X style game.
If you're not familiar with 4X games, it is explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate.
Yeah, so if those 4 E words sound intriguing to you, that is what this game is going to be about. You're going to be one of various different alien races who have ran out of room or kind of been pushed out of their home territory, entering into the void, discovering new planets, filling out this map of just beautiful galaxies, and doing your very best to gather resources, gather powers, deal with event cards as they kind of come across, and do exactly what you said. You're trying to conquer and establish your empire in this whole new sort of system of galaxies.
Right. And most 4X games are going to be the space epic games that are going to take 6-8 hours. Think Twilight Imperium. This, however, allows you to distill that into 2 hours, which is much more accessible. Like every other Ryan Lockett game that he does the artwork for, is very expressive and allows you to get into the feeling of being in space. This game is the only one of Ryan Lockett's that takes place in a space setting.
Yeah. It also brings some of those 4X elements, simplifies elements of them, and brings some of them to the forefront. So the decision making is a little bit more accessible than some of your heavier hitters.
Yes.
Another thing that this game does really well, just like we've touched on a variety of his games, the event cards, the story-driven cards, the flavor text, there is enough there to really attach a story to, and some really, really unique sort of world-building elements.
Which is not something you always get in a straight-up
4X. Our main go-to 4X games in sort of the gaming group with Matt, primarily, have no flavor text at all. Just paperwork and numbers. You put in whatever lore you want. So it's nice to have a game that has beautiful artwork and some really well-written content, along with some compelling gameplay. Mm-hmm. So, swing this down to the side, and you can talk about Artifacts, Inc.
Artifacts, Inc. is a small box game, but don't be fooled by its small box appearance. Like all of the Ryan Lockett games, the world is expanded for you. This is 1929. You are a fledgling artifacts company. You are trying to be better than your competitors and make the best artifacts company that you can. So in this game, you're going to use dice to roll, to use different cards in a card draw and gain artifacts, gain different equipment for your group so that you can gain better artifacts. And you can do kind of the Indiana Jones kind of thing, going out and exploring in kind of deserts and caves and caverns where you're going to find artifacts. There is also a mechanic where you can go diving for artifacts. It's kind of a central board where you can go and find underwater artifacts, which is different.
Very cool. This is one that you brought from your personal collection. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. Regretfully, I need to. But now we're getting to the titles that kind of introduced both of us, or just me?
Both of us, yeah.
Okay.
Both of us is fair to say.
So, the first in this lineup of 3 is going to be Above and Below.
This is it is definitely my favorite Red Raven game, but it is also possibly my favorite game of all time.
No kidding.
No kidding. It is a 10 out of 10 for me on Board Game Geek.
So I feel fully unequipped to talk about it once we just revealed that. But Above and Below is a story-driven, it's a narrative-driven game where you are developing a city, like a tribe of people above ground, and slowly diving into the caverns beneath your feet, expanding the city, exploring those caverns, gathering resources and people, and bringing knowledge back up to the surface.
Yes. That is
Tell me why it's 10 out of 10.
It is 10 out of 10. I keep coming back to the artwork, but the artwork definitely pulls you in. It's one of the few games in the Ryan Lockett Red Raven collection that has blue as its central motif. My favorite color is blue, so that automatically draws my eye to it. But on top of that, this is one of the premier storytelling games in the board game space. The stories that it tells are interwoven in such a way that when you complete a story, the choices and decisions that you make will affect you later on. That's not true for every single story in there, but there are several stories that will kind of move along, and depending on where you're at in the game, it will affect you in different ways. So the storytelling aspect is just absolutely fantastic. And like I said, compared to other storytelling games, this one just goes above and beyond what is otherwise available on the market.
Now, outside of the artwork and the storytelling itself, what's the actual core gameplay like?
Core gameplay is a little bit worker placement driven. You're going to have villagers that are able to do an action for you per turn, and it's going to be things like harvest or explore or teach new recruits to your village so that you can expand your village. You can build buildings both in the above section and the below section. So there are so many different ways that you can build out your own game. If you just want to build buildings up top and and not partake in any of the adventures, it is a perfectly legitimate way to play the game, and you can still have a great time doing that. Or if you want to go on adventures, roll some dice and make some decisions, you can also do that.
Yeah, very cool. This is one that I haven't played quite as much as Near and Far, which we're getting to soon. I feel like I now need to play this one with you a few more times.
I think you do.
Now that I know it's your kind of top of the line, Islebound.
Say it again.
Islebound.
Islebound.
Exactly.
Islebound is the second game in this trilogy. It is not as story driven as Near and Far and Above and Below, but it is still, once again, beautiful in its way. In Islebound, you are a ship captain and you are sailing around the lagoon in order to ally or subjugate the different islands in the lagoon. While you're doing that, you're going to recruit a crew that allows you to sail around and ally or subjugate the different islands, fight sea monsters, and generally gather resources that will make you the best pirate captain in the archipelago.
I mean, you sold me. I'm convinced. If anyone knows anything about me, they know that I am the best pirate captain.
Oh yes,
in the archipelago.
You are the best.
It's sort of become our trademark. Thank you for sticking around. But the duck thing, all a facade. It's all about being a pirate.
Oh, of course, it's always about being
naturally.
a pirate.
Near and Far. For me, I sort of saved the best for last.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's fair. Like you said, we have a few others that are some of your personal favorites. And
that's true.
I've played a few of the other ones more than I've played Near and Far, mostly because I want to do the campaign.
Right.
And if you just heard the term I used, that's right. This is going to be a campaign-accessible game.
Yes.
Near and Far is going to be the follow-up, the third in the series, sort of a direct sequel to Above and Below.
Yes.
Amber Mines, which is the first expansion, actually introduces elements of that Above and Below sort of geography into the game Near and Far. In Near and Far, you're going to be setting off as an explorer, pitching tents, establishing trade routes, going through sort of scenarios and journeys, discovering the world. All along the way, bringing home artifacts, scoring victory points, and hopefully winning the game by the end of it. It has a worker placement style mechanic at the core kind of city element of it, where you're able to gather new recruits, gain certain experience, trade in the goods that you have for other resources that you can use, whether you're getting a pack bird, a tortoise, things like that. And then the second element is going to be this giant book that flips open that has this intricately designed map that you're actually able to jump onto and start exploring the landscape. That's going to be where the narrative storytelling happens, where you're actually kind of experiencing the game as a whole.
Yeah.
An interesting thing you pointed out about Above and Below that I think is probably true in Near and Far as well, you don't really have to do any of the storytelling elements.
That is correct.
If you didn't want to, you could just play this as a strategic worker placement, be as efficient as possible.
Right, and not only can you just do that in the normal game, but Near and Far also includes an arcade mode where you can eliminate the story completely and just have
But why would you
random
ever
encounters.
do that?
Because some people aren't as crazy as us.
Those people should never play games. I'm kidding. You're great people.
You
but
are great people.
Also, I don't want to play games with you because the story element of this game is the thing that comes to the forefront for me.
Yeah.
Like you said in Above and Below, I love the way that the stories interweave themselves. There's a narrative consistency, I would say,
Oh, of course.
that allows things to influence and line up and you to feel like you're actually on a journey.
Yeah, and that is more incorporated into Near and Far than even more so than Above and Below. Because Near and Far can be played as a campaign game, those stories will stretch over the entire 10
And the
game
campaign game is fascinating because elements of your discoveries in the first chapter or two could be pieces that come back way down the road.
They most
You
certainly
actually take notes and write down keywords and code words and passwords that you might never use,
Yep.
but you might get a really good payoff eventually.
Yeah. Another module that is in the box for Near and Far is actually also the character mode, which is included in the second half of the storybook, which all of the, I believe there's 8 separate characters in the book have their own narrative story that they can go through. And that takes place over a series of games as well. It's not a campaign per se, but it is the character mode and allows you to explore individual characters, which I know some people enjoy individual character study over a grand overarching theme like the campaign would offer.
For sure. So that's going to be our showcase. Those are the games we had on hand in our sort of gaming group. Games that we've purchased and kept in our collections.
Yes.
Primarily you. These are
Primarily me.
I like these games a lot, but you're sort of a loyal fan of
I definitely am.
everything Ryan does. So Ryan, next time I see you, I'm gonna get a copy signed to bring home to this guy, so you'll know who I'm doing it for.
He's promised.
I did promise.
Yeah.
There are a few other titles in the actual showcase that we didn't have our hands on.
That's correct.
What are the ones we're missing?
We are missing 8-Minute Empire, not
Okay.
Legends version. It's just, it's still an area control kind of game. We are also missing Klondike Rush, which is kind of a stock market trading kind of game.
With Yetis, I believe is the twist?
Yeah, with Yetis.
Okay.
They're on a mountain. We are missing Dingo's Dreams, which is featured kind of in the same world as Rome, Above and Below, and Islebound. And things
Is that one of the little dogs that you can
Yes,
roam
it
around
is.
with? All
It
right,
is.
great.
Everybody loves your first companion in Near or Far. It's either a dog or a cat, and you get to follow that dog around.
Cool.
We're also missing City of Iron, which is kind of a city building game.
Okay.
And then the one that we're missing that's probably easiest access game is something called Megaland,
Okay.
which is kind of akin to jumping into a video game, collecting the coins, getting some treasure, and getting out just in time so you don't die.
So those are the titles we didn't get to dive into quite as much. If you've stuck through to this point in the video, thank you for checking it out. Hopefully, our goal was to introduce some people who were familiar with maybe the bigger titles, Near and Far, Above and Below, into some of this world and lore and other games they might be not quite as familiar with.
Yes. If you love Ryan Lockett's artwork, it is just as beautiful across the whole line of Red Raven games.
Yeah, if you like his gameplay and narrative storytelling
Yeah.
as well, just beyond the artwork itself,
Seek out some of the smaller titles.
there's some unique games out there. If you like worker placement, if you like 4X, if you like kind of pattern building, there's titles that fit into those genres. And as his lineup expands, we'll of course be bringing more content here to the channel.
Yes, of
So,
course.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know which title is your favorite, or if there's something that you're hoping to sort of see him cover. And let us know specifically, is there a title out of this lineup or out of the ones that we maybe weren't able to cover that you'd like to see developed more here on the channel? Whether that's gameplay, unboxing, review, any of those sort of things.
I'm always willing to try something.
He'll come over and play any of these games.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's not that hard of an ask. Once again, thank you for joining us. Please remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. We'll see you next time. Thank you.